tam özünüzü bulacağınız, kıvama ereceğiniz ana kadar, dünyayı sırtınıza alıp taşıyabilecek güce ulaşacağınız ana kadar, o kuvveti temsil edeceğiniz şeyler elinizde olacağı ana kadar, Türkiye'deki devlet yapısı ölçüsüne göre bütün anayasal müesseselerdeki güç ve kuvveti cephenize çekeceğiniz ana kadar, her adım erken sayılır.
Scholar who leads an international opposition group while living in self-imposed exile in the United States. The chaotic scene sent shockwaves around the world. Turkey is a member of NATO and a key Western ally.
This is a very serious situation. Turkey is a key country in this region. It lies between Europe and all the problems of the Middle East.
Beynimizde bizim ne kadar hücre var? Evet. Bilim adamlarının saydığına göre 10 milyar. Beyindeki bu 10 milyar hücre harekete geçmek için tedebbür, tefekkür adına böyle bir tembih bekliyor. Allah onları oraya koyduğuna göre, o kadar asker orada bulunduğuna göre bence onunla çok şey fethedebilirsiniz. Ama zannediyorum onlar da uykuda. Evet, uykuda. Çalıştırılmadığından dolayı, zorlanmadıklarından dolayı nasıl? Bana öyle geliyor yani.
Gulen, the preaching paradox between a peace champion and a coup leader. On the 15th of July 2016, both the Turkish parliament and presidential palace were bombed for the first time in history. Tanks ran over people. Soldiers fired on civilians. Within hours, around 300 innocent men, women, and even children died. Thousands were injured. Many government and military buildings were invaded. No, this wasn't war. It was a bloody coup attempt, and the jets bombing the Turkish capital of Ankara were carrying Turkish flags. Although the young Turkish democracy has gone through a handful of successful and failed military coups in the past, this time it was different. Past attempts to overthrow the government were usually organized from within the military, but not this time. A US-based cleric, Fethullah Gulen, has been accused of organizing and implementing this latest attempt to overthrow Turkey's democratically elected government through his devoted followers within the Turkish military. Here lies the apparent mind-boggling paradox. Until the coup, Gulen was highly praised and popular for his teachings for interfaith dialogue and toleration, and was regarded as the moderate voice of Islam by Western media outlets, an antidote against more violent extremist groups in the Middle East. Yet, army generals, the president, the ruling party, opposition leaders, and more than 95% of the Turkish population now believe him to be the person behind this bloody coup attempt. This mind-boggling dilemma needs a closer look. Who is Gulen, and what is this Gulenist movement? In this series of episodes, we'll explore the who, what, where, when, and most importantly, the why of this movement, in order to better understand this latest attack on democracy. First, let's take a look at a brief history of the Gulen movement. The Gulenist movement spans nearly 4 decades and can be broken down into 4 phases. Fethullah Gulen and his movement first appeared in the 1970s as a branch of another non-political religious group, which worked for preservation of faith against atheism and positivism. In the aftermath of the 1980 coup in Turkey, Gulen's movement had gained more ground thanks to their good relations with the Turkish state. But gradually, diverting and deviating itself from the mainstream Islamic movements, Gulen and his movement became more independent. They developed their own way of service. This new path focused on modern education. They opened tons of private schools for all levels of education, and they trained their best students for prestigious universities in their famous preparatory courses. The admission rate for students of Gulen by way of the National University exam was considerably high and successful, and as a result, they managed to turn their courses into massively successful sources of recruitment for the group. It's also allowed Gulen to handpick the smartest pupils and place them within the military, judiciary, and police institutions. In the 1990s, the group extended their educational movements abroad as well. They opened private Turkish schools in almost every country imaginable, well, at least in the countries except those which didn't allow American influences, such as Iran, Russia, and China. In parallel to his education centers, they also got heavily involved in interfaith dialogue activities and developed networks in the West and particularly in the U.S. Following the 28th of February postmodern coup in 1998, Gulen fled to the U.S., where he currently still resides. In 2002, when Erdogan's AK Party won in a landslide victory in Turkey, Erdogan himself still wasn't allowed to be elected. Charges relating to a politically charged poem landed a young Erdogan in prison in 1999, and all of his political rights were stripped off as a result. In the course of time, Erdogan's party faced many challenges from bureaucratic establishments, and his party even faced attempts to disband them while they were in power. Obviously, Erdogan and AK Party still needed alliances and support within the state establishment. This was the opportunity for Gulen and his movement, which leveraged the situation to increase their power so greatly both in civil and state sphere. They latched onto Erdogan and his rising AK Party, allowing their power to peak between 2010 and 2014. Thus, they became entrenched in the judiciary branch, so much so that sitting judges were secretly members of the group. Gulen's group also compromised the police force, treasury, and most importantly, the military. After this brief introduction chronicling the history of the Gulen movement, we'll take a closer look at what the Gulenists believe and what they're really all about in our next episode.